What's good? Salutations to the nations. Angel Knots. It's your boy Young Sinai. So we gonna be taking a look at some stuff that I've been gathering, you know what I'm saying? All right, so before we get things started, hold on. Let me pull up this playlist of stuff I've been saving. Hold up. All right, here we go.
Folks.
All right, here we go. Well, before we get started, we're going to go ahead and get things started with a prayer. All right. Father God, thank you for today. Thank you for anybody that tunes in, Lord. Just ask that you bless them and their families, watch over them, protect them, let them come to know you. If they don't, if they do, let them get even closer to you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. You know what I'm saying? Angel Knot. All right, so this video is, let's check it out. This video is from the Video Game History Foundation. It is titled library.history.org, now in early access. So they do a lot of good work, to my understanding, when it comes to game preservation, which we know is very important. Yeah, so let's go ahead and check out what they got going on.
Folks, the Video Game History Foundation library is now open wherever you are. We're starting to roll out digital access to our collections of video game history material, and they're free for everyone to access right now.
Say what?
If you're new here, you might be wondering who we are and why we're doing this. The Video Game History Foundation is a non-profit organization dedicated to making video game history better. Thanks to the support of generous donors like you, we've been able to push game history and game preservation to the next level. We're fighting for reforms to help make video game history more accessible and working with members of the game industry to celebrate and preserve its legacy. And for the last 8 years, we've been building an archive filled with the kind of stuff researchers need to understand the history of video games. Things like game development materials, press kits, artwork, media coverage, memorabilia, and more. And we want you to be able to use it, whether you're writing a book or just making a video.
Duke Nukem and his crude humor. This is hilarious. We're not even going to say anything regarding it.
And we want you to be able to use it. Whether you're writing a book or just making a video, you're a researcher. And we want you to have access to the information that will make your research better, without having to fly out here to California to see it. Our solution is our digital library. Last winter, we put out a video showing you how the library system works. If you want, you can check that out right now. Today, we're launching the first wave of open access.
Am I tripping though? Because I feel like I just read something where Congress denied them. So am I tripping? Y'all let me know in the comments if I'm tripping.
Access content in our library. There's some pretty exciting collections we're kicking off with, along with over 1,500 out-of-print video game magazines. Let's take a quick look at what you'll be able to see first and how we're turning this physical library into a digital resource.
Hey, that Mega Man poster is hard.
First off, we're going to talk about our collections of development materials, and this is the really juicy stuff. We think the best way to study video game history is to have access to materials from the making of games. Things like development documents, scripts, source code, original artwork, video footage, team photos, even something like meeting notes that can tell you how video games got made and sold.
Wow.
So we've been working with members of the game development community to capture and preserve their work. Our flagship collection is the Mark Flitman Papers. Mark is a retired game producer who had an amazing run in the 90s and 2000s working for publishers like Konami, Acclaim, Midway, and Atari. He wasn't the one programming or usually designing the games, but he was the one who made sure they got done. If you want to know about the business of making video games, Mark's collection has everything. Budgets, marketing plans, licensing guides, charts, angry memos about deadlines, and 5 minutes of Macho Man Randy Savage losing his mind in a recording that Mark Flipman made for a wrestling game in the 90s.
Oh, yeah, it's the Macho Man. Everybody get ready to get down. It's party time, because we're going to do the thing in the ring. Oh, yeah.
We'll have plenty to share about Mark's story in the future, but that's not all we have from game developers. You might have seen our video last year about the lost levels of Sonic the Hedgehog 2. All that original art from artist Tom Payne is part of our library, along with art from other games, like the original character concepts from the cult hit GameCube skateboarding game Go Go Hypergrind.
Oh, that's super
and we are
dope.
Especially proud to have preserved over 100.
Hold up, let's run that back. That look like Jet Grind Radio with animals. Hold up.
Go Go Hypergrind. And we are concepts part of our library, along with art from other games, like the original character concepts from the cult hit GameCube skateboarding game Go Go Hypergrind.
So wait, that game is released? He said it's a cult hit, so it has to be released. I've never heard of that game. It looks super dope.
And we are especially proud to have preserved over 100 hours of video from the making of the Myst series by developer Cyan, including never-before-seen interviews with the developers. Cyan has been a big believer in our mission, and they've been unbelievably generous about opening their vault for us. And for you.
Quite demanding. Please do not signal me unless you've done the...
Next, we're going to show you some things that you might not think of as traditional research sources. A lot of the time, the things around video games can tell us more about the games than the games themselves. We love context here, and we've got some pretty good context for you. For starters, we've digitized the first 100 CDs from our massive collection of art and press materials from GamePro magazine. If you were a game publisher,
Oh, wow.
CDs like these are how you would send artwork, screenshots, and
Man, that original Mortal Kombat artwork is so cold, man. Look at this.
for a game publisher, CDs like these.
Yo, okay, so when I was a kid, hold on, let me tell y'all. When I was a kid, my dad, man, rest in peace. My dad, he used to know how to sew and used to know how to make costumes. So he would like make my costumes and it would be like dope. He made me a scorpion costume and he had like the skull mask under and everything. I remember I had a little rope, you feel me, like the spear rope. And I remember I was walking down the street on Halloween and another little kid, he's like, "You're Scorpion, I'm Scorpion." But he wasn't Scorpion, he just had a yellow ninja suit. I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, fun fact for today. All right, let's get back to it.
Are how you would send artwork, screenshots, and press releases to game magazines. And the folks at GamePro held on to almost everything they were sent. Many of these were in obsolete digital formats that there's no good way for most people to read on a modern device. So we did our best getting them into a format you can view in your browser. But don't worry, we kept the originals too. And we digitized some of our guidebooks from E3, the Electronic Entertainment Expo. E3s were huge events for video game promotion, and if you've ever tried researching an E3, you know how hard it is to figure out who was showing off what at the event. These books have lists of every single booth and every single company at the show.
Wow.
This is the most complete record you'll probably ever find of E3, short of having a time machine. I was just flipping through one of these books and I saw a listing for a game called Pretzel Pete by Stealth Productions. I've never heard of this before, but I guess it was shown at E3 1999. What the hell was Pretzel Pete?
Look, he's got
I
Grand
needed
Theft
to
Auto.
know. Well, that sent me down a research rabbit hole. I searched for Pretzel Pete in our library system, and one of the only other places it's ever mentioned is in an issue of PC Gamer from 1999. And that's what we're talking about last today, video game magazines. Game magazines are a great way to learn about what was happening in the video game industry and what people were saying about games back in the day. So we wanted our magazine collections to be searchable and well cataloged. Now, we saved this part of the video for last because this might sound really simple, but you're not going to believe how much work this took to get right.
Sounds like a lot of work.
The gaming community has already been scanning tons of video game magazines over the years. So for our library, we set out to build on what the community has already done. Many of the scans in our library were provided by community groups, like RetroMags and Out of Print Archive. We also invested in new infrastructure to do our own high-quality scans in-house. When we get a duplicate copy of a magazine to scan, we debind it and feed the pages through this ridiculously powerful scanner, which can scan something close to 50 pages per minute at archival quality.
Wow.
But having a bunch of images doesn't
Man, I
mean
know
we
them
have a
always
good
heck
resource for
expensive.
researchers. And that's what this is all about, making something that's going to be useful for video game history research. We wanted all of our magazines to be full-text searchable, and that's a lot harder than it sounds. The software that makes it possible to search through a magazine scan, generally speaking, is designed to work on plain documents. We're talking high contrast text, dark fonts on light backgrounds, something that might come out of your home printer. Not whatever this is. If you've ever read a 90s video game magazine, you know how crazy those magazine layouts get. Text recognition for documents has a real problem with text like this. In order to fix that, our director of technology spent months developing a next-generation text recognition tool that handles even the toughest magazine pages with no problem. It's a significant leap in quality over what we had before. Just look here. Here's an example. Here's that page we just saw. This is from a magazine called Die Hard Game Fan. This is what most text recognition software sees.
Oh my goodness.
And here's what our system got.
Yeah, it's funny.
It's night and day. There's just no comparison. We didn't want to launch... Folks, the video...
Oh man, really? My bad, y'all. My bad. I was trying to pause it just to show this.
Game magazine, you know how crazy those magazine layouts are. No problem. Example. Here's that page we just saw. This is from a magazine called Die Hard Game Fan. Our system.
I was just trying to pause it just to show that middle part is what was really doing it in. Like, it was going crazy.
It's night and day. There's just no comparison. We didn't want to launch the library until we got this right. And thanks to all these new tools, video game magazines are a better resource for studying game history than they ever have been before. This is just the beginning. Our digital library is the long-term home for our collections, and over the coming years, we're going to keep building the library and adding new material. We have a whole storage room full of stuff we have to keep processing, so there is plenty to come. We've been building towards this for a long time, and we think this is going to change how people study video game history. But you don't have to take our word for it. We gave some of our friends an early preview of the library system, and they seem to like it too.
The video.
Okay, so now I'm understanding better because I'm pretty sure they were trying to get it where people could download ROMs for research purposes and Congress denied. I'm pretty sure that happened, but this is specifically for books and digital media, uploading magazines and stuff like that. Okay, makes more sense now.
Video Game History Foundation Library is a tremendous resource for my research. Being able to look at magazines, press releases, developer documents, and advertisements that are all in one place and fully searchable, I'm able, as a historian, to see the history of that game in a new way.
A big priority for my research is presenting unknown video game history in an entertaining and accessible way. So for me, the Video Game History Foundation Library isn't just a valuable educational archive, but a great tool for finding and sharing.
Yeah, this will be really good because there's some video games that I want to cover and just talk about some history with you guys. I'm like, where's a good resource to look? Because, I don't want to just completely copy someone else's YouTube video and, Wikipedia, that's not always accurate. So this is really cool what they're doing.
Fun surprises.
So I'm so excited about all the cool business and workplace documents you can search through. I can look at everything from expense reports to company Christmas cards, photographs of work trips. It's the kind of stuff that, as a labor and business historian, really makes my work possible.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie, that sounds boring.
One of the most interesting things for me is that they're collecting player-made ephemera. I can only do my research because of the work that sociologists and archivists did in the 1960s. So what the VJHF is doing now, it's going to be a hugely important resource for researchers and historians in the future.
At Digital Eclipse, we start every one of our interactive documentary games with a huge deep dive into the research, and to just have this all at our fingertips for design documents and press releases and internal stuff and magazines, it's incredible.
The big thing when it comes to trying to piece together the history of video games and how they get made and how people felt at the time is finding these elements in the first place. Having a lot of that work done by the professionals at the video game history.
Hey, he got video game stuff hanging on his microphone too. That's tight. Look, y'all can't ever see it because they ain't ever in focus. So I got a NES and an SNES. This is a Batman dog tag. Got my kid's name on it. But yeah.
Foundation, this is going to very quickly become an invaluable resource. It feels primed to change how people create videos and books going forward.
This is the coolest thing ever. They have like 15 hours of stuff from the production of Riven. I'm going to watch all of it. And there's just a tape. It's a Buck and Bumble written on it. This is the best thing ever.
We can't let the archives for magazines or game production history lie in the hands of companies because
they don't
for the
care.
most part, they don't value that information in the same way a historian does. It's incredible to have a
What'd that say? Looks like GameStop just shut down Game Informer magazine and killed its archive. Oh my gosh. Do you know how much Game Informer was a part of my childhood? Oh my gosh.
Value that information in the same way a historian does. It's incredible to have a trustworthy source like this available to anybody who is interested in gaming history. Thank you, Video Game History Foundation!
You can access our library right now at library.gamehistory.org.
Yo, that's hard. We got to check that out sometime. I'm gonna go ahead and write that down. All right, yo. So that's what's up. Let's go ahead to the next video. That was dope. All right.
Angel Knot.
In the past few years.
All right, so this video is titled How This 55-Year-Old's first comic made over $5 million. All right, and this video was posted by Matt, there's a bunch of T's, comic and manga history. All right, let's check it out.
Years, something unprecedented has happened in the comic industry, and her name is Emile Ferris. She has quickly become one of the most important, celebrated, and respected creators in the field of comics. But she didn't publish her first comic until she was 55 years old. A year before it came out, she was on the brink of homelessness, cleaning houses to make ends meet after losing her career to a debilitating illness. So I wanted to know, how does this happen? How does someone later in life, with no industry connections, no experience, and facing a host of disadvantages, create such a seismic shift in this art form? Well, to understand that, we have to look at Emile Ferris' extraordinary life and her even more extraordinary comic, My Favorite Thing is Monsters. A lot of us
have y'all ever read this? I've never read this or heard of this, but let's check it out.
Stories we'd like to tell. Stories that burn inside of us, that we know would be hugely popular if only we could find the time to get them down on paper. Then life gets in the way. The years slip by and our ideas remain on the shelf. My Favorite Thing is Monsters could have easily been such a story. Once, in her 30s, Ferris had a chance to move to LA and work as a writer, but she chose to stay in her hometown of Chicago and focus on raising her daughter. A single mother, she made ends meet as an illustrator and sculptor, including sculpting a number of McDonald's Happy Meal toys. This could have been the whole story of Ferris's life, a commercial artist and mother who had a great idea for a story that she just never got around to telling. But her comfortable existence was about to be thrown into chaos. As Ferris dressed for her 40th birthday party, her 6-year-old daughter warned her not to go. She was worried that something terrible might happen that night. And she was right.
Wow.
But Ferris didn't listen. She went to the party and sipped sangria with her friends on Lighthouse Beach. She doesn't remember the end of that party.
Oh my goodness.
She surfaced from a state of delirium 3 weeks later in a hospital bed. She tried to figure out what was going on as a parade of doctors marched in and out. They explained to her that she'd been bitten by a mosquito, that she contracted West Nile virus, as well as meningitis and encephalitis. One doctor revealed something else. Each time he had visited, he had been putting needles in her foot. She hadn't noticed. She was paralyzed from the waist down. The neurologist told her she would never walk again. But the worst was still to come. She had significant damage to her right hand. The hand that had once been so dexterous at sculpting now couldn't even hold a pen. Her career as a commercial artist, the entire stable life she had known up until this point, was over.
Wow.
But a new life was about to begin. One of the burdens of being a comic book YouTuber is that I'm forced to read so many comics. And if I don't make these videos fast enough, Someone might leave a mean comment and hurt my feelings. But thanks to today's sponsor, Factor, I have a solution. Store's pressures of just picks of Alan Moore. Activity. Convenient. Map, MA box plus 20 time Ferris had faced medical difficulties. She'd been born with severe scoliosis. As a baby, doctors told her parents she wouldn't live past 30. She couldn't walk until she was 3 years old. But while she couldn't walk, she drew. And years later, at school, when she could walk but couldn't play on the playground, she made friends by telling stories. Art and storytelling became her means of escape. And when, after almost a year in a full-body cast, her spine was corrected, she knew she would live past 30 and prove her doctors wrong. And now, at 40, she would once again turn to her art and storytelling to carve a new life for herself. She and her daughter moved back in with her mother to save money. She began physical therapy, and after a few weeks, she was ready to begin. She asked her daughter to duct tape a pen to her hand.
Oh, wow, that's dedication.
She couldn't use her old illustration style, so she built up an accumulation of short, scratchy lines. It took hours. It was hard work, but as she worked, it grew easier. She completed this self-portrait, and her daughter added in the final detail, her standing up from her wheelchair. She wouldn't give up on art. She wheeled down to the Art Institute of Chicago and presented them a portfolio of her illustration and sculpture work.
I went to the Art Institute online.
Along with a disclaimer. She would never be able to make that kind of work again. She hoped to get into computer animation, which wouldn't require...
I dropped out though, so I don't know if that counts.
...the same physical dexterity. Then came the other disclaimer. She couldn't afford the tuition. But the admissions at the Art Institute saw something in her. They not only accepted her, but offered her a full scholarship. But unfortunately, she was really bad at computer animation. It just wasn't clicking for her. But still, she wouldn't be defeated. She took other art classes, honed this new, scratchy style that she could still achieve after her paralysis. Because it was during her studies that she became re-engaged with comics, with that powerful mixture of word and image. She realized that comics had always been part of her life, that she had loved creepy and eerie as a kid, that she'd grown up with Mad Magazine, and even the illustrations in Dickens had had a huge influence on her. But this also forced her to confront the fact that as a young girl, she had been abused by her uncle, and during this abuse she had been watching cartoons, an experience that made her reject cartoons and comics for decades. But now, in her 40s, she confronted that trauma and was once again able to fall in love with cartooning. The works of Art Spiegelman, Chris Ware, and Alison Bechdel opened her eyes up to the storytelling possibilities of the medium. It became her mission to create comics, but not everyone at the Art Institute embraced this idea. Do you think that stopped Ferris? Of course not. She would add her art to her writing assignments and add words into her art assignments. And for her final thesis, she would make her first proper comic. She put everything she had into this 24-page comic and submitted it as her thesis. And not only did she graduate, but in defiance of her neurologist's predictions, she walked on stage to collect her diploma. But even after graduation, she wasn't quite ready to go back to commercial art. Those 24 pages had lit a fire inside her, and she obsessed over finishing the story that she had started. Thankfully, in recognition of her work, the Art Institute awarded her a grant. Not a lot of money, but enough to keep her afloat and allow her to keep working on her comic. And so begins an epic undertaking. She continues working in this demanding style, working 16 hours a day to make progress. When the grant money runs out, she sends the pages she has out to agents, and eventually one takes her on. They find a small publisher willing to take a chance on her, who gives her a small advance. Once again, it's not a lot of money, but it's enough to keep her going. But as she works, the project gets bigger and more complicated. The publisher no longer wants it, but they let her keep the advance. As the money dwindles, she starts cleaning houses to keep the lights on. Wow. But by night, she keeps working. Soon,
how many of us would keep chasing our dreams like through all of this, you know? Having to have a pen taped to your hand and, you know, just all of the troubles that she's facing, she just keeps on going.
The money is gone, but Ferris won't give up. Sometimes a friend will give her $20 to buy groceries for the week. When she can't afford food, she goes to Whole Foods to eat free samples. She goes to the bank to drink free coffee. Her life is falling apart, but her manuscript is coming together. She keeps working like this for 6 years. Her agent believes in the book and keeps sending it out, but publishers keep passing. Not 1 or 2 rejections, they accumulate 48.
Oh my gosh.
But finally, someone says yes. She sells the book to Fantagraphics. She's broke, she's wrecked, but she did it. Her book is finished and it's going to be published. Soon, she'll even make some money from it. Fantagraphics prints 10,000 copies, a fairly modest amount. But once again, luck is against her. The shipping company carrying her book from the printer in China goes bankrupt. The boat is impounded by the Panamanian government, leaving all 10,000 copies of her book in limbo. The planned release date of Halloween 2016 comes and goes. This is devastating for Ferris. She needs the book to sell so she can make money. She starts a GoFundMe page to support herself while she waits and waits for the shipper to get her book back. After almost 6 months, her book finally arrives in America. We'll talk about how it's received in a minute, but first, let's actually take a look at what she spent the past 6 years making. Personally, I'm drawn to comics which use the unique form of this medium to create movement in my mind. Works that use composition, detail, speed lines, blur, panel layouts, and body language to create motion. Works that tell their stories visually, only relying on words to enhance the images. And my favorite thing is Monsters does none of that. So why do I like it so much? I like it precisely because it isn't what I'm used to. It challenges everything we perceive as proper comic grammar, blasting the medium back to its original components, text and images. It then reconstructs those materials into something entirely new, something that is clearly a comic book, but also feels alien to everything we've seen in the past 100 years.
Yeah, that looks super unique. I kind of want to check this out.
The book takes the form of a diary, a notebook kept by a young girl named Karen who envisions herself as a werewolf. Ferris restricts herself to the tools Karen would have had: a spiral-bound notebook, colored ballpoint pens, and felt-tip markers. This whole setup can be purchased today for less than $10. This is a clue to Ferris's success. Ferris is already facing a lack of mobility in her hands, but she chooses some of the most difficult tools to work with. It's an insane choice, but Ferris persists because it serves the story.
Oh, that's an ugly puppet.
Story. And as we already know, no obstacle will stop her from completing it. This notebook approach critically alters the way words and text interact. Some pages will be a drawing of a scene from Karen's day. Others will be a long journal entry scattered with accompanying drawings, often literal but frequently colored by Karen's interpretation of the world around her. There are times when more conventional comic layouts creep in, but then the next page will be Karen's ballpoint pen interpretation of a classic work of art, surrounded by commentary from her or her brother Dees. It energizes the whole work, as every page works on multiple levels. At the top, there's that surface compositional level. The work that Ferris, as Karen, produces with these ballpoint pens is jaw-dropping. She hones that scratchy style caused by her paralysis and extends it to its logical conclusion, filling each page with hundreds of lines, building up these almost sculptural forms. The pages where she reimagines covers of creepy or eerie would be worth the price of admission alone. But just beneath that compositional layer is the literal storytelling layer. As Karen records the events of her days,
Hey, y'all know how to draw? Let me know if y'all know how to draw. Let me know how I can draw better, okay? I can pretend, kind of, sort of draw, but let me know, point me in a direction where I can draw, better. I want to learn how to draw without taking a lot of time and effort to learn how to draw. Something I can squeeze in easily in my day as a 38-year-old with a full-time job in the business and a wife and 2 kids. I want to be able to draw this good in 5 minutes or less a day. Anything like that?
Thoughts and her experiences in words and images. But beneath that, there's a final layer, which is our interpretation of Karen's work. The book tackles a lot of heavy adult themes, but all through the eyes of a 10-year-old. So it's left to the reader to puzzle together the world around her. As Ferris blends these 3 layers on every page, we're asked to engage deeply with this work, and a tense dramatic irony emerges that forces us to confront our own knowledge of the darkness in this world, even as we see things through the eyes of someone innocent. But beyond the intellectual level, this technique is just a shockingly effective way to tell a story. The layouts and the use of lined paper definitely remind me of Linda Barry's work, and the experiments with the form maybe owe something to Chris Ware, and the idea of capturing a child's point of view can be seen in plenty of prose fiction. But the way it all comes together is fresh and exciting. And that's the trick, perhaps the other secret to the book's success. It manages all of these formal innovations without ever sacrificing readability. It's never a slog, it never feels experimental or challenging. It doesn't want to stump you or stop you in your tracks. You could hand this to someone who'd never read a comic before and they would still get it. Because all the cross-hatching in the world isn't what makes this book work. It might catch your eye, but no comic, no matter how technical or innovative, can work if it doesn't tell a great story. And here again, Ferris succeeds. The story is ostensibly a mystery,
that's a pretty picture.
If you're here for pulse-pounding revelations, you're probably in the wrong place. While mystery is the frame and horror elements lend it flavor, The real star of the show is the characters themselves and the intimacy with which we're invited into their lives. The cast in Monsters, which is probably smaller than you're expecting given its size, are real, complex, flawed, and ultimately deeply human beings. They're the kind of characters who stay with you long after you close the book, whose voices you'll still be hearing weeks and months later. Monsters owes as much to Charles Dickens as it does to Jack Davis. As someone who loves literary comics and character-driven work, it's really refreshing to see a cartoonist working in that tradition who embraces rather than rejects genre storytelling. I love a good memoir, but man, I need a break sometimes. This is a work of passion, of obsession, of years of self-sacrifice, and in February 2017, the world is about to see it for the very first time. The 10,000 copies of My Favorite Things Monsters finally land in North America and start their overland journey to bookstores and critics. Ferris, for her part, is broke. 3 days before the release date, the first review appears in The New Yorker. They say of Ferris that her mastery of comics, her pyrotechnic drawings, and her nested narratives are already placing her among the greatest practitioners of the form. A week later, Friday's New York Times publishes an extensive profile.
First, Emma Ferris was paralyzed in her book.
On Monday, The Guardian prints a long interview.
I didn't want to be a woman. Being a monster was the best solution.
2 days later, NPR.
My Favorite Thing is Monsters is a dazzling graphic novel, tour de force.
Here's a glowing review. The word is spreading. Ferris is brought to tears at a comic convention when Art Spiegelman, the author of Mouse and one of her greatest inspirations, tells her that he loved her book. He would go on to describe her as one of the most important comic artists.
That's got to be something, when your favorite artist tells you, that they like what you do. Like, for example, I do Christian hip hop, and I really used to listen to Eshawn Burgundy a lot. And when I got to rap to him and he was impressed, man, that's like the dopest feeling ever.
Artists of our time. This unlikely book has struck a nerve with the literary mainstream. Why? Perhaps it's because the character-driven narrative is more in line with contemporary literary prose fiction. Perhaps it's because she tackles a number of timely themes. Or perhaps it's just because it's so undeniably good and so original that no one can ignore it. Not just critics, but actual people are liking it too. It debuts at number 8 on the book sales charts, ahead of every Marvel and DC book. By May, it would be up to number 5. Fantagraphics orders a second printing of 30,000 copies, the largest in their 40-year history. It gets translated into a dozen languages and has been in continual print, with sales now over 100,000 copies and millions of dollars. So let me answer my original question. How did this happen? How could somebody later in life, facing so many obstacles, find this much success with their first comic? Well, the answer is that no one else could have. Monsters wasn't an overnight success. It's not the product of 6 years of hard work. It's the product of 55 years of living, of surviving the struggles and challenges of life, of the confidence and persistence that can only come with age. Ferris's story is a reminder that it's never too late, that nothing can stand in your way if you are determined to pursue your dreams.
And there's things you want to do in life that you're not sure you can do. But I'm here to tell you, not only can you, but I will come to your house and I will kill you if you don't.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you guys so much for watching.
All right, yo. All right, so that was dope, man. That was very inspiring. I think that my takeaways was, even when things get hard, to keep on going forward, and it's never too late in life to pursue your dreams. It makes me think about Colonel Sanders. I think he was like in his 60s or something. When he launched KFC, something like that. I could be wrong on the age. Also, the other thing I took away is listen to your kids, because she said her daughter told her do not go to that party, and she went anyway. All right, let's go ahead to the next thing.
Angel Knot.
All right, so this video is the Sega Genesis got destroyed in Japan. Okay, this is by Lady Decade. Okay, I know I got some Sega fans. Y'all been sounding off in the comments. Let's go ahead and see what she talking about. Let's see if she got her facts together, and y'all correct her if she don't. Let's check it out.
Who doesn't love this classic Sega platform? Well, The Japanese, obviously. When it comes to iconic game consoles that's made a cultural impact, a few can hold a candle to the Sega Genesis. Being pretty much just about as legendary a system can be by this point, this 16-bit marvel wasn't just a hit. It was at the epicenter of a gaming revolution. Taking the United States by storm, this console, celebrated as the Mega Drive around most of the world, would function as the catalyst that ignited one of the most memorable console wars in history. In fact, it didn't just do well, it triumphed and dominated in so many places, including large chunks of Europe, Australia, and Brazil. In all of these places, it even outsold its formidable rival, the Super Nintendo. Much like the British Empire at its peak, this Sega conquest spanned continents, with the Mega Drive establishing dominance in multiple territories. Remarkably, even in North America, where the Nintendo Entertainment System once reigned supreme, its dominance would eventually come to an end at the hands of the Sega Genesis. However, despite these triumphs, a critical setback in one of the most pivotal markets cast a long shadow over the Mega Drive's ambitions of becoming one of the world's best-selling consoles. That setback? Its failure to conquer its home turf in Japan, a region that was, without question, the beating heart of the console gaming industry at the time. This raises the intriguing question: why? So, with all that in mind, let's jump headfirst into the fascinating world of consumer behaviour to uncover why the Sega Mega Drive stumbled in its own backyard. How did a console that achieved legendary status abroad fail to leave a lasting impression at home? I am Lady Decade, and this is why the Sega Mega Drive got destroyed in Japan.
Dang,
The Sega Mega Drive was pure 90s.
Dang, she put some emphasis on destroyed. I hope she come with some receipts.
Magic, bringing arcade quality gaming home with style. From Sonic the Hedgehog's blazing speeds to the gritty action of Streets of Rage, its 16-bit power delivered unforgettable worlds, vivid graphics, and soundtracks that still echo today. It wasn't just a console, it was a defining symbol of a generation's love for gaming. The system's library certainly brought with it a certain kind of charm and attitude, with gameplay in the system's key titles differing wildly from the popular AAA titles of today. Fortunately, while times have moved on, great titles inspired by this amazing period in history continue to be pumped out. And what's even better is that I know how you can play them for next to nothing. Get 66% off Streets of Rage 4, 77% a Final Fantasy down memory lane. I first need to bring you back to the 29th of October 1988, a date forever etched in gaming history as the day the Sega Mega Drive first hit Japan's shores. This was no ordinary system, as the cutting-edge console was powered by technology drawn from not only Sega's brilliant System 16 arcade board, but also anchored by the mighty Motorola 68000 processor.
I didn't know Motorola had anything to do with Sega.
You could easily make a case that in all technicalities, it made Nintendo's Famicom look like a baby's toy in comparison. So, what could go wrong, right? Well, as the curtains rose on its launch, the Mega Drive quickly established itself as the most technically advanced gaming console on the market, boasting unmatched power and sophistication. After all, it's marked a quantum leap from Sega's previous.
Hey, Sonic was getting it. Hold up, run it back.
A quantum leap of matched power and sophistication. After all, it's marked a quantum leap from Sega's previous 8-bit consoles, which had failed to secure a significant market share in Japan or anywhere else really by that point, for that matter. And
did y'all have a Sega Master System? We always, talk about Sega Genesis, but who had a Sega Master System? I had a Sega Master System. When I say I mean my dad. Okay, I was a kid. I didn't have a job. I was a kid. Okay, but I remember having a Sega Master System, and I remember me and my mom playing it while my dad was at work, and we broke it. I don't know how we broke it, but we broke it.
This a crucial moment. Nintendo was clearly the undisputed champion of the Japanese gaming market. The ubiquitous Famicom platform, a system later rebranded as the NES for most parts of the world, was a household favorite that many gamers...
Do y'all like the look of the Famicom more or the NES? I like the NES. I think it looked way cleaner, but I mean, I know I do have a bias being from here and it's just a nostalgia, but it just looked cleaner.
Loved and cherished. In fact, Nintendo's dominance, especially in North America, was a formidable force that posed a significant challenge for Sega, so the company was faced with a tall task when positioning its new 16-bit platform right from the beginning. But the Genesis ultimately ended up doing great in America, so why not at home? One of the most intriguing chapters in the Mega Drive story lies in its Japanese launch, which played out quite differently compared to its introduction in other parts of the world. While the Mega Drive would eventually grow to boast over 900 titles by the end of its life cycle, its early days in Japan were characterized by a sparse lineup that made it difficult to lure gamers away from the well-established Famicom favorites. In fact, the Mega Drive's launch in Japan stumbled right out of the gate. As of day one, the console arrived with just 2 titles, Space Harrier 2 and Super Thunderblade.
And those low-key kind of look like the same type of game.
Showcase the system's impressive 16-bit capabilities, they were far from enough to spark widespread enthusiasm, especially in a market accustomed to the Famicom's seemingly endless catalogue of hits. Things didn't change quickly either. By the time the first Christmas rolled around, the situation had only marginally improved, with Altered Beast and the niche Osamatsu-kun added to the lineup. Sega's failure to secure a broader array of launch titles left early adopters feeling underwhelmed, providing little reason for potential consumers to want to jump on board either. Worse still, the following 6 months were marked by an agonizing drought of new releases. For a console that needed to make a strong impression in a fiercely competitive market, the lack of fresh content was a critical blow, to say the least. This sluggish start made it nearly impossible for the Mega Drive to gain traction at home, as gamers had little incentive to invest in a new system when its library couldn't match the breadth and variety offered by Nintendo.
Yeah. I mean, if you already have Nintendo and it already has, 7,000 games, what is the point of picking this up? I can see what they're.
Despite its sleek design and futuristic 16-bit hardware, it was difficult to drum up excitement for a console with such a limited game library, especially in an era when a strong launch lineup could make or break a system's appeal. By the 1st of January 1990, an astonishing 15 months after its Japanese launch, the Mega Drive had a meager library of just 26 games.
Wow.
This glaring lack of software support had a profound impact on its performance, as reflected in the sales figures. By the end of 1990, Sega had managed to sell approximately 1 million Mega Drive units in Japan, which, although sounding like quite a lot, was a dismal number when compared to the Famicom, which had already surpassed a...
So I wonder if, Japanese parents got the Genesis for their kids or the Mega Drive for their kids. I'm like, what is this crap? I said get a Nintendo, not a Sega.
Staggering 20 million units sold. The cold hard truth was that the console wasn't even in second place, as even NEC's PC Engine, Sega's lesser-known competitor, managed to outsell the Mega Drive during this period, putting Sega down in third place. But what made matters even worse was the extreme lack of third parties who were developing games for the system. Compounding the issue, Nintendo, ever the fierce competitor,
I was about to say Nintendo got the game on lock. They got all. They're probably betting or they're probably saying in their minds do we want to place this bet and go with this lesser known obscure console, or do we just want to develop for Nintendo? So they just playing, doing the safe bet.
Had been locking down developers with aggressive exclusivity deals. These contracts effectively barred some of the most talented studios from working on Mega Drive titles.
Oh, y'all were telling me about that in the comments. Y'all were letting me know. Y'all was putting me up on game. Okay.
Leaving Sega with a shallow pool of partners to rely on. The
For the other Sega reaction video, y'all gotta check that out.
consequences of this early misstep were profound. Without a robust library to attract players, the Mega Drive struggled to establish itself. This lack of third-party support didn't just slow down the console's growth, it cast a long shadow over its trajectory, making it nearly impossible for Sega to close the gap with its rivals. In a market where software truly was king, the Mega Drive was left to fight an uphill battle, one that would define its fortunes for years to come. It appeared Nintendo had an ironclad grip on Japan. The titans of Japanese game development, Capcom, Konami, Square and Enix, were firmly loyal to Nintendo, leaving the Mega Drive in a much weaker position. What made this even worse is that, unfortunately, Sega's internal strategies did little to help their cause. While Nintendo excelled at fostering close relationships with developers and maintaining tight control over its software ecosystem, Sega's approach was plagued by inconsistent messaging and lukewarm support for external studios. This lack of cohesion left third-party developers who were interested in working with Sega hesitant to commit to the Mega Drive, further widening the gap between Sega and its dominant rival. In relation to this chapter of history, former Sega of America CEO Tom Kalinske later admitted that Sega failed to apply the bold and aggressive strategies in Japan that would later be proven to be wildly successful in the US and Europe. While markets abroad were treated to bold marketing campaigns like the iconic Genesis does what Nintendo don't in the US, or in the UK, the memorable slogan.
Man, if they said that in Japan and came out with that lackluster library, they would get laughed out of the country.
To be this good takes ages. To be this good takes Sega.
Oh, that's
Sega's
hard.
approach
I never
in
seen that
Japan
one.
was far more subdued. Competitive advertising in the region was considered impolite, forcing Sega to tread carefully with its messaging. While Sega's Western branches were taking bold jabs at Nintendo, Sega Japan came across as far too restrained, more pat a cake than proper fight. Unsurprisingly, this softer approach failed to connect with consumers, leaving Sega struggling to gain traction. Adding to the challenge, Nintendo's aggressive exclusivity deals locked down the major developers into its ecosystem, cutting the Mega Drive off from high-profile titles. It felt as though Sega showed up to a battle of wits, completely unarmed, while Nintendo arrived with an entire arsenal at its disposal. No matter the reason, Sega's subdued approach generated little interest. This timid strategy effectively left the door wide open for Nintendo to dominate unchallenged. Sega's failure to adopt a similarly bold and aggressive playbook in its home market not only stalled its momentum, but also gave the impression that it wasn't even serious about competing. As a result, Sega found itself trapped in a frustrating predicament, unable to secure the support of the industry's biggest developers, partners who could have propelled the Mega Drive to new heights. With Nintendo firmly monopolizing the most influential studios and Sega failing to present a compelling case for its platform, the Mega Drive's quest for relevance in Japan often felt like an uphill battle with one hand tied behind its back. If Sega weren't going to shout from the rooftops that they were better than Nintendo, then who else was going to bother to do so? Not the Japanese, obviously. Due to the platform's successes overseas, the Mega Drive, as you know, would ultimately end up with a huge library and a fair amount of support from third parties. So while Konami and Capcom eventually began developing for the Mega Drive, their arrival felt like locking the barn door after the horse had bolted. By the time these legendary developers turned their attention to Sega's console, Japanese gamers had already sworn their...
So what was the exclusivity deal? I guess, I mean, it had to have just been for a period of time, so they couldn't just keep it on lock.
allegiance to the Super Nintendo. Sega's belated efforts to court these heavyweights came across as too little too late, and the impact on the Mega Drive's reputation was difficult to reverse. Worsening the situation with Konami and Capcom, Nintendo's exclusivity agreements ensured that major franchises such as Street Fighter II and Turtles in Time were locked to the Super Famicom for a full year after release. When the embargo finally lifted, Sega seized the opportunity to bring Street Fighter II Champion Edition to the Mega Drive, but Nintendo wasted no time firing back. Almost immediately, they released the Street Fighter II Turbo for the Super Nintendo, which not only boasted faster gameplay, but reinforced Nintendo's position as the home for premier third-party titles. This tit-for-tat exchange highlighted Sega's constant struggle to play catch-up, as even their most significant victories were quickly overshadowed by Nintendo's countermeasures. The delay in securing key developers and franchises hurt Sega's ability to establish the Mega Drive as a must-have console in Japan. Gamers who had grown accustomed to experiencing the latest and greatest games on Nintendo systems saw little reason to jump ship, leaving Sega to fight a losing battle in its own backyard. The Mega Drive's library, while eventually impressive, lacked the early momentum needed to sway a fiercely loyal audience, and by the time Sega began to close the gap, the damage had already been done. What a disaster. But sadly for Sega, there were even more reasons that the Japanese stuck with Nintendo. In Japan, the Famicom and Super Famicom were synonymous with the golden age of JRPGs, a genre that captured the imagination of an entire generation of gamers.
Yeah, they got Chrono Trigger, they got Final Fantasy, they got Earthbound. Is that considered a JRPG? I mean, I know it was made in Japan, but it's America, right? Like it's taking place in America. It's still a JRPG, but yeah, they had that on lock.
Titles like Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy became cultural phenomena, selling millions of copies and influencing everything from anime to merchandise. These games weren't just popular, they were defining aspects of Japanese gaming culture.
Sorry, y'all, I'm warming up some coffee, you know what I'm saying?
With Dragon Quest III's release in 1988 causing such a stir that it reportedly led to school absences and prompted new laws around weekday game launches.
Wow.
The Super Nintendo only amplified this legacy, becoming the home for classics like Chrono Trigger, Secret of Mana, and Earthbound.
Okay,
all of which
so they're including Earthbound.
Push the boundaries of storytelling, music, and visuals. JRPGs on these systems offered epic tales, complex characters, and vast worlds to explore, creating experiences that felt as immersive as they were emotional. Square and Enix never published titles for the Mega Drive, ensuring that cultural juggernauts like Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy remained exclusive to Nintendo. At the time, Mega Drive owners who were fans of the genre had to settle for Phantasy Star, though judging by the system's sales figures in Japan, it seems not many chose to make such a compromise.
Hey, that's Happy Console Gamer's favorite game, though.
But the Mega Drive's lack of success wasn't just about the games, as even their graphics, although better than the Famicom's, wasn't that much better than the rest of the competition. When discussing the legendary 16-bit battle between Sega and Nintendo, one key player is often left out of the story. NEC and their PC Engine, the very system that beat the Mega Drive at home.
Yeah, I've never played PC Engine. Have y'all played PC Engine? Let me know. Am I sleeping? Am I missing out? If I am going to play a PC Engine game like on a ROM, what is the game you will recommend? Like, you know, you will recommend Sonic with Sega, Mario. What's the game you're going to recommend for PC Engine?
Which I briefly mentioned earlier. While the Mega Drive and Super Famicom dominated the narrative of the console wars, the PC Engine quietly carved out its own legacy as a formidable contender in Japan, shaping the competitive landscape long before Sega's console even entered the fray. The PC Engine, which debuted a full 12 months before the Mega Drive, gave NEC a significant head start in Japan's fiercely competitive gaming market. The timing was everything. By the time the Mega Drive launched, the PC Engine had already built a loyal audience, bolstered by its impressive library and innovative features. In fact, one could argue that the PC Engine was the true catalyst for the 16-bit wars, offering gamers a console with more power and flashier graphics than the aging Famicom, a full year before the Mega Drive hit store shelves. For many Japanese gamers seeking an upgrade, the PC Engine became the obvious choice, leaving Sega's system.
Dang, so I must be really missing out. You ever played PC Engine? I'm missing out, huh?
To play catch-up from the very start. Despite technically featuring an 8-bit CPU, the PC Engine earned its 16-bit bragging rights through its advanced video color encoder and display controller, which allowed it to produce vibrant visuals with larger color palettes and bigger sprites. For gamers wanting a visually striking experience, the PC Engine was a game changer, bridging the gap between the Famicom and the emerging 16-bit era. Though it had its limitations, such as
y'all saw Street Fighter 1. They're not convincing me with that one. Look, this Street Fighter 1.
The PC Engine was a game changer, bridging the gap between the Famicom and the emerging 16-bit era. Though it
There we go, Street Fighter 1.
had its limitations, such as weaker handling of background layers compared to the Mega Drive, the graphical similarities between the two systems were close enough that many consumers saw no clear reason to pick Sega's machine over NEC's already established option. Basically, the PC Engine was already the Famicom alternative. Pricing added another layer of complexity to Sega's struggle. While the Mega Drive was reasonably priced, it was marketed as a premium product compared to the Famicom and PC Engine. This created the perception that it was more of a luxury item than an accessible console for the average Japanese household. Meanwhile, the PC Engine continued to thrive, securing its position as the second most popular console in Japan, behind Nintendo's juggernaut Famicom. While it floundered.
Was PC Engine a thing in the United States? I feel dumb for asking that, but like, was it a thing? That was never an argument on the playground. You know, Super Nintendo being better than PC Engine, or I never heard of PC Engine until I was an adult and started like getting into the retro scene.
Under the name TurboGrafx 16 in the US,
Oh, okay, that makes more sense. Okay, yeah, still nobody I knew had that, but okay, thank you. She answered my question.
PC Engine's domestic success presented a massive challenge for Sega, which, in that era, the company were never able to overcome. Adding another layer to the story, Sega enjoyed significant advantages in markets outside of Japan that it simply didn't have at home, and much of that, in part, is due to Sega of America's work with one particular publisher, EA. Despite
it's in the game.
Audiences might have towards these gaming giants today, it was this company that played a crucial role in catapulting the Mega Drive to success in Europe and the Americas. The lasting appeal of sports games, a phenomenon that still thrives today, has driven many to purchase consoles specifically for their favourite virtual sports experiences.
That was the cutest fight I've ever seen. Look at the cute fight.
This console specifically for that still thrives today has driven many to purchase consoles specifically for their favourite virtual sports experiences. The Genesis was a system that many players specifically purchased to play sports games. With a solid lineup of sports titles, the Mega Drive became an attractive option for Western consumers eager to dive into classics like Madden, FIFA, and PGA Tour Golf. The wealth of sports titles contributed significantly to the console's widespread appeal, offering an enticing option for gamers who were into this sort of thing. However, while this strategy worked well in Western regions, it encountered cultural barriers when applied to the Japanese market. Looking back at this classic Japanese console war, it's clear to see why the PC Engine and Nintendo products had more appeal among Japanese audiences. The reasons go beyond just the advantage of chronological precedence. Despite its technological prowess, the Sega Mega Drive faced challenges due to the popularity of specific genres and art styles that didn't quite resonate with the Japanese market. It's no secret that gaming tastes differ wildly across the globe. Japanese kids couldn't get enough of JRPGs, obsessing over games packed with menus, stats, and complicated battle systems because nothing says fun like turning your hobby into an elaborate maths lesson. Meanwhile,
Nothing
American
says fun like menus.
children were busy slamming Mountain Dew and gravitating towards games that featured 3 key ingredients: sports, boogers, and rule breaking, whether it was scoring touchdowns in Madden, chucking snot in Boogerman, or living out their rebellious fantasies in games like Road Rash.
Chucking snot in Booger Man.
Chucking snot in Boogerman.
Okay, I've never heard of that game, and I am happy.
Or living out their rebellious fantasies in games like Road
Hey,
Rash.
Road Rash was
wasn't
sick.
exactly a hallmark of the US gaming scene. To put it as crudely as possible, maybe all of this was as simple as Western kids wanted sports, violence, and enough attitude to make their parents roll their eyes, while Asian kids were happily grinding away in games full of numbers, menus, and enough repetitive tasks to make their maths homework look like a warm-up.
I feel like that was a little. Racist. I ain't gonna lie. I ain't accusing her being a racist, but that was kind of a racist comment.
Chad's Sega Genesis may have stolen the Virgin Nintendo's lunch money in the West, but it seems that in Japan, the Chad Nintendo calmly sat at the top of the cafeteria eating a gourmet bento box while the Virgin Sega tripped over its own shoelaces. Holding a half-eaten rice ball, it dropped on the floor. Literally, what a loser. No matter how you feel about the platform's failings in Japan, one thing is clear. The Mega Drive's library brought a unique charm and attitude to gaming, with its key titles offering gameplay that feels wildly different from today's big-budget AAA releases. Times have moved on, but games inspired by this incredible era are still being created. And the best part is you can play them for next to nothing. Right now you can grab Streets of Rage 4 at 66% off, Sonic Mania for 77% off, or River City Girls.
Alright, let's see. Okay, so let's see. All right, so what I took from that is that Sega had a horrible marketing strategy in Japan, as well as the odds were against them because of Nintendo pretty much having all of the developers on lock. Yeah, so let's go ahead to the next video.
Angel Knot.
All right, so I used to love Goosebumps as a kid, as well as Animorphs, but I want to see this video regarding. Actually, we're gonna do this one first. Hold on. I got 2 Goosebumps videos. Okay, we're gonna first do the history of Goosebump books, so we can know how it all came into existence with R.L. Stine. All right, so this video is brought to us by Secret Galaxy. Shout outs to them. All right, let's go ahead.
Monsters, werewolves, snakes, skeletons, weird noises, slime, haunted dolls, zombies, spirits of the undead, creatures that creep in the night. It was everything a kid's nightmares are made of, delivered in the most terrifying way they could imagine. Books. Hi, I'm Dan Larson, and this is the history of Goosebumps. Goosebumps is a
Slappy. I was just about to talk about Slappy. That's like the most iconic Goosebump character. He like Chucky, but a ventriloquist dummy.
media franchise that began with a series of 62 books written by R.L. Stine, published between 1992 and 1997. For many kids, it was their first exposure to the genre of horror, and for many more, their first exposure to reading for fun. Robert Lawrence Stine, or R.L. Stine, is...
Could you imagine your first time you say, I wanna start reading, and then you pick up a book and you're like, now you have nightmares and you never read again.
He is more popularly known, was born in Columbus, Ohio in 1943. He began his journey into writing just 9 years later when he first put his hands on a typewriter. He wrote his own stories and made his own comic books. Despite his mother begging him to go outside and play, he insisted that outside was too boring.
Whammy.
Making his own joke books was way more fun. Stein was a self-described comic book freak who loved things like science fiction and EC Comics horror titles like Tales from the Crypt and Vault of Horror.
Did y'all used to watch the Tales from the Crypt TV show back in the day?
Comics that were scary, shocking, funny, and marketed to kids. In fact, in 1954, the US government targeted EC Comics as what they perceived to be one of the major corrupting forces of America's youth. The pressure was so intense that EC Comics stopped publishing horror comics, and the comics industry created the Comics Code Authority to self-censor and prevent any publisher from doing what EC Comics did. We'll come back to this. Even more than comics, Stein credited his interest in reading and writing to a librarian who knew he was into comics and shifted his attention to the works of Ray Bradbury. In a 2020 interview with Time, he praised what really drew him to Bradbury's work was that they were imaginative and so well written and all had great twist endings. Thank you to KiwiCo for Kiwi through abstraction education for all. First month of a secret university. In 1965, Stein pursued his dream of becoming a professional writer. As he said in a 1996 interview, he moved to New York, started writing humor books, coloring books, and even bubblegum cards because, quote, somebody's got to write that stuff. When you start out as a freelancer, you don't say no to anybody. Stein landed a job with Scholastic, a US-based publishing company where he wrote dozens of...
Well, it's kind of facts. You still got to have your morals, But I don't think that bubblegum was, impeding upon his morals too much.
Books and founded the magazine Bananas under the pen name Jovial Bob Stein. 72 issues of Bananas were published by Scholastic from 1975 through 1984.
Did y'all used to watch Three's Company?
2 years after that, in
I used to watch it on Nick at Night. Y'all remember that?
1986, Stein wrote his first horror novel called Blind Date, which was a surprise because he had never considered writing horror until a publisher at Scholastic insisted he could write a good horror novel for teenagers. From that same interview with Time in 2020, quote, I didn't know what she was talking about. What is a horror novel for teenagers? So I had to run to the bookstore and buy up a whole bunch of books by Lois Duncan and Christopher Pike and see. Then I wrote this book, Blind Date. It was a #1 bestseller. I thought, wait a minute, forget the funny stuff. Kids like to be scared. I've been scary ever since. Blind Date was the first of a new Scholastic young...
That boy said, as soon as he, hold up. My bad. I was trying to get a sound effect, but it's taking too long.
Adult series called Point Horror. Stein continued to write teen horror novels with titles like The Snowman, Beach Party, The Boyfriend, The Babysitter, and The Babysitter 2. In 1989, Stein wrote The New Girl to kick off a new series of teen horror novels called Fear Street. Some of the books were horror, some of them mystery. All of them took Stein back to the bestseller list and reinforced his reputation as a horror writer for young adults. As a side hustle, he put his Jovial Bob Stein hat back on to co-create the TV series Eureka's Castle for Nickelodeon. He was the head writer and helped create the characters, which would end up running 3 seasons through 1991. Stein's wife, Jane, was the co-founder of
To think that R.L. Stein wrote for Nick Jr. That's funny.
Parachute Press with Joan Warshaw in 1983. That's the company that produced the books that Stein wrote and then sold to Scholastic. After the success of his teen horror novels, Jane and Joan...
R.L. Stein is like the kid version of Stephen King. I wonder if R.L. Stein and Stephen King have a friendship.
Convinced him to target an even younger audience. As Stein put it in that same Time interview, quote, no one had ever done a scary series for ages 7 to 11 before, and I wasn't sure it would work. I said, all right, if I can think of a good name, maybe we'll do 2 or 3. Legend has it that fate intervened when Stein saw a print ad that said, it's Goosebumps Week on Channel 11, and lo, the path was revealed to him. Goosebumps began as a 6-book contract with Scholastic. The first book, Welcome to Dead House, was published in July of 1992. It didn't take long for Stein to find his voice for the Goosebumps series. He has admitted that Welcome to Dead House was a bit scarier than it should have been, but by the second book, Stay Out of the Basement, he worked out the magic formula of light horror mixed with humor.
I wonder who did the artwork. Well, I mean, I guess can know just by looking at a book and see, who was the illustrator. But the artwork for the covers for Goosebumps, man, that stuff was epic.
Stein wanted to craft stories that were what he called safe scares, like a white-knuckle ride on a roller coaster with dips and curves that always lands without mishap. As he put it in a 1996 LA Times article, quote, "You know how it is going to end before you get on." Stein was a machine of Goosebumps production, writing a book a week, frequently starting with the ending and working back from there. New characters, new settings, new mysteries, and supernatural happenings. Always being careful to stick to self-imposed guidelines about what
A book a
scary
week.
meant in a Goosebumps book. To Stein, that meant keeping one foot in the supernatural. Where his teen horror novels depended on believability, the younger audience of Goosebumps needed fantasy, things that couldn't actually happen. As he saw it, kids that age already had enough scary things to deal with, like drugs, their parents getting
Yo, that's dope. I like that, man. I like that. That's that really shows concern for the children to not get them freaked out so much. You know, I think a lot of times when people think about horror, all they think about is what can shock somebody so much and just give them nightmares. You know, and I think that it's cool that he wanted to, like you said, have one foot in, one foot out.
divorced, farting too much, probably. While ghosts are fun to imagine, no one ever actually dies in a Goosebumps book, because that's the line that shouldn't be crossed.
Yeah.
Step right up, ladies and gentlemen. Next Saturday morning for Slappy Sideshow Saturday. Only on Fox Kids. I'm Slappy. For more tales that you can possibly imagine. Just think, you see all the freakiest Fox Kids creatures.
Tell me when it's off.
So remember, be here next Saturday morning for Slappy Sideshow Saturday on the only place that rocks kids, Fox Kids. You know, you really should try to get some sun.
Stein pulled ideas from any
That,
place he
that mask one, that was a good one too.
He could get them, the comics and books he read as a child, movies, stories that he was told, stories that he misunderstood, anything he could think of that might have an angle that could make it scary. Goosebumps took off. Within 2 years, Scholastic had sold roughly 200,000 copies of every title in the Goosebumps series. That was double the volume of the Fear Street books in that same time. The secret, a surprise to both Parachute Press and Scholastic, was that Goosebumps managed to appeal to both girls and boys. Goosebumps not only found the younger audience it was reaching for, but landed across demographics as indicated by the mountain of fan mail they received on a regular basis. On the other hand, adults weren't entirely on board with the new phenomenon. While most were happy that kids were reading by choice, some weren't happy with the choices they were making. Goosebumps were exposing them to violence, they said, as some communities attempted to have the books banned from libraries.
Violence?
Goosebumps are the junk food of children's books, they cried. Goosebumps...
I mean, yeah. I mean, it probably is, but I mean, it's fiction, you know? What fiction isn't junk food?
Are the literary equivalent of comic books and should be treated as such, inappropriate for school reading. This echoed the sentiment of the very comic books that Stein himself grew up reading: EC's horror, crime, and mystery comics, Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror. Cries of censorship once again rang out in the name of protecting children, like a terrible creature rising up from the grave to haunt him in the future, the reanimated husk of the darkest days of the comics industry. Some parents and educators thought that the content and reading level of Goosebumps books was so poor that, to them, reading Goosebumps was worse than not reading at all. Thankfully, many others defended Goosebumps as a gateway to more complex literature built on a foundation of excitement for the medium. They argued that it was the parents' responsibility to determine what was appropriate for their children, not the government. In 1995, Scholastic expanded the Goosebumps empire with Give Yourself Goosebumps, a series of game books similar to Choose Your Own Adventure, books with multiple alternate endings that varied depending...
Man, these books are so epic, man. And then like these ones with the holographic covers, man, this made me want to get on eBay and look for some.
On the choices made by the reader, and allowed for multiple reads of the same book written by multiple ghostwriters, taking on the responsibility of the brand and the name R.L. Stein. That same year, as an indicator of its burgeoning...
Oh, so those books weren't written by R.L. Stein? When it was saying ghostwriters, I thought it was trying to be funny because, you know, it's Goosebumps, but those were written by other authors. Okay.
Culture status, Goosebumps was adapted for television. Fox Kids CEO Margaret Lesh, who had been responsible for some of the most popular kids television programs...
Hey, that was a good show too, I ain't gonna lie.
...in history, recognized the potential of Goosebumps after her own son started reading the books. Some network executives weren't sure that an anthology series was going to work, But it turned out their fears were unfounded, as Goosebumps became the #1 rated kids television show in the US for the next 3 years.
Wow.
Most of the episodes were adapted directly from the books. As of this video, many of the episodes are available to purchase officially through various streaming services or unofficially here on YouTube. Goosebumps was a licensing powerhouse with the brand name and various characters featured on a variety of merchandise, school supplies, clothing, puzzles. Hasbro produced a Monster Head maker, Milton Bradley board games like One Day at Horrorland and Terror in the Graveyard. There were handheld electronic video games, collectible figures, and if you can believe it, Pogs. Goosebumps fortunes peaked in 1990.
Yo, I got Pogs. I got a Pog collection. I'm going to have to share it with y'all one day.
With 5 million books sold, nearly 130 million since the series began in 1992, likely accounting for around $450 million in sales for Scholastic. And that's when the fervor for the books began to subside, perhaps an indicator of young readers growing out of the series, perhaps moving on to Scholastic's new series, Animorphs.
Yeah, see, that's what I was talking about earlier. You know what I mean? It was Goosebumps and Animorphs. And Animorphs, remember? You could take the Animorph book, and at the bottom, you could flip the pages, and it would show like the kid transforming into the animal. Man, that was hard.
Contribution to Scholastic's revenue dropped precipitously in 1997, as did their stock price, roughly 40%. The reality was that behind the scenes, Scholastic and Parachute were battling for control of the franchise rights and the percentage of hundreds of millions of dollars of profits. See, in 1996, when Scholastic and Parachute signed a new contract, Parachute demanded a greater share of profits and control of merchandising. Scholastic refused. Scholastic had long since stopped being just a publisher. They were essentially a licensing and multimedia company thanks to lessons learned during the success of the Magic School Bus in the mid-90s. Parachute knew a Goosebumps feature film was already being discussed between Scholastic and Fox, and that merchandising was where all the real money was going to be made. Parachute was getting around 33% of merchandise sales and around 7% of book sales. They wanted more, and they had leverage in the form of final say on whether or not a deal goes through. When Scholastic refused to negotiate their percentages, Parachute started declining deals. Down went the movie at Fox, as well as the $30 million promotional tie-in with Pepsi. By the time the two sides came to an agreement, sales were already in the toilet and the damage to the brand was done. In 1990,
Yo, they was really treating Slappy like Chucky. I did not know there was a bride of Slappy.
The original run of Goosebumps books and the television series came to an end as Stein began writing a new series called Goosebumps 2000, which purported to be much scarier than the original books in an attempt to recapture some of those lapsed readers. The legal action dragged into the new millennium and prevented Stein's contract from being renewed in 2000. Publication of all Goosebumps books ceased. It would be 3 more years until the two sides could come to a resolution. In 2003, Scholastic purchased the Goosebumps franchise in its entirety from Parachute for $9.65 million. It was the best solution because, as Jane Stein...
I did not know that Scholastic also published Harry Potter. Man, they was getting cheese.
Stein said in a 2003 article in Publishers Weekly, quote, "We have always been committed to do what is best for the property," and that she was happy with the way things turned out and excited about the future. R.L. Stein returned to writing Goosebumps books in 2008 with the Goosebumps Horrorland series published by Scholastic. For the
that cover ain't hitting like them Goosebumps. I ain't gonna lie. I ain't gonna hold you.
first time ever, each book was part of a continuing story that developed a consistent world and featured recurring characters and the vilest villains from the original Goosebumps series. 19 books were published through January of 2011, at which time the Hall of Horrors series replaced it with 6 more books through April of 2012. The new series was supported by the interactive websites EnterHorrorland.com and EscapeHorrorland.com. The game Goosebumps Horrorland was also released for the Nintendo DS, Wii, and PS2. In 2015, Goosebumps finally made it to theaters with Goosebumps starring Jack Black as R.L. Stein. Sort of. This R.L. Stein is a writer, but there's also a lot of actual magic involved that binds the creatures in his stories to the pages of the books he writes. The likeness ends at human with glasses. Goosebumps was a box office.
I've never seen that before. Is it good?
A success, in the sequel, Goosebumps 2 Haunted Halloween arrived 3 years later in 2018. Jack Black was back, and while it didn't perform as well as the first movie, it was still a commercial success, capitalizing on the 90s kids who grew up with the books, now old enough to bring their own kids to share in the experience. Goosebumps was back on television in 2023, or at least streaming. Like previous adaptations, it featured many of the familiar monsters and ghouls from the books, but with a serialized story instead of starting fresh each episode. 10 episodes were available on Disney Plus and Hulu. Response was strong enough from critics and fans that a second season was greenlit in February of 2024. As of this video, no premiere date for season 2 has been announced, but we do know that it will feature an all-new cast, a new setting, and a new mystery.
Hey, that look
and that is
hard.
a perfect way to define the future of the franchise. Billions in sales, the second best-selling book series of all time behind only Harry Potter. As a 90s brand in an era of 90s resurgence with all the ownership rights in one place, the ceiling for production is as high as the audience wants it to go. Technology ruins every mystery, Stein said to Time magazine in 2020. He was referring to the challenge of creating a compelling story. As a writer, he has to find a way to get the phones out of the characters' hands. They lose them or run out of power or there's no signal. But that's also a good approach for the
Wait, what? Hold on, what?
creating a compelling story. As a writer, he has to find a way to get the phones out of the characters' hands. They lose them or run out of power or there's no signal. But that's also a
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I said. I think what he's saying is like, a lot of problems can be solved with a phone. I always say that about Seinfeld. Like Seinfeld, that's one of my favorite shows of all time. But so many things that they face could have been simply solved if they had cell phones.
a good approach for the real world. Stein believes that once you take out the technology, kids are no different today than he was 70 years ago reading horror comics, because fears never change, and we all get goosebumps. Thanks for watching. Please hit like, hit subscribe if you're not already a subscriber.
Yeah, so that was dope. Did you used to read Goosebumps as a kid? Let me know in the comments. Or were you more of an Animorph person? If you was, I ain't mad at you. You feel me? I like Goosebump books. So I'm a Christian. I don't deal with a lot of the satanic stuff, but Goosebumps, I don't think it dives heavy into that. I think it's more just about like fantasy horror, which I can get with. All right, but yo, so I had another Goosebump video lined up. I think I'm gonna save it for another time because I don't want to watch more Goosebump stuff at the moment. I'm all goosebumped out. All right, so let's go to the next video.
Welcome to now.
All right.
Angel Knot.
So this video is Mega Man X's early beta footage and how it evolved to 16 bits. Okay, this is by Now in the 90s. I was actually playing Mega Man 3, I think. I can't remember which Mega Man it was. I quit super early because I'm like, oh my gosh, this game is hard. But I was like, yo, how did they go from the little 8-bit Mega Man to, you know, looking as dope as he does on Mega Man X? So hopefully this answers. Let's check it out.
An overlooked Super Scope game, a Sega CD port, and the 16-bit evolution that we all hoped for. Hi, I'm your host Jared, and today is January 5th, 1994. How do you reinvent the wheel? When people are already expecting greatness, surpassing that gets even harder. To really wow the same audience, you have to bring something special. You gotta hit them with that X Factor. Released in January 1994 for the Super Nintendo, was Mega Man X.
Dr. Light developed X, the first thinking, decision-making robot. Now, X must hunt down Sigma using his all-new arsenal, including the...
That game's so hard. That's one of my favorite games of all time. I haven't beat it. Because I keep starting over. But I love it.
X-Buster and the awesome emergency acceleration system fight the mega battle of the next century in Mega Man X from Capcom.
Mega Man X is a side-scrolling action platformer. Play as X as you run, jump, and shoot everything that comes your way. All new abilities include X being able to slide down walls and jump up them, and find some big mechs that he can pilot himself. He can also upgrade.
You know, one thing I always thought was super whack is why can't Mega Man duck? Like, come on. Are you serious? I can't duck. He's a robot. He got all these powers, but he can't duck. Okay.
his maximum life bar to getting hidden armor pieces for new powers. This lets him dash for even faster speed and platforming abilities, charging up his X-Buster to a 3rd level, and being able to charge up every single boss weapon he's acquired. Take down the 8 robots that have gone Maverick, and take down the evil Sigma for real, definitely. Mega Man X was developed and published by Capcom. Production of it began as a means to elevate the Mega Man franchise to the 16-bit era and charge it up with new graphics, faster and better gameplay, and a more sophisticated story. Flashback to January 1993. Electronic Gaming Monthly issue 43 hits your doorstep, and under the gossiping rumor...
Have y'all seen that cartoon? Is it on Netflix or is it on what is it on? Secret Level? Yeah, it's on Amazon, I think. Have y'all seen that? If so, let me know. Is it dope? Do I need to check it out?
Rumors section, there's talk of an upcoming Super Mega Man. It's the first anyone has heard of it, and not knowing anything, everyone presumed it to be like the same old Mega Man we all knew. Then, EGM issue 48 comes in June, letting you know that Super Mega Man is now known as Mega Man X, taking place way further in the future. Then comes the Summer Consumer Electronics Show of 1993, where Mega Man X is debuted at the public for the first time. Early screenshots of this preview build made the rounds of all the media outlets, showing some interesting early stages. Backgrounds are way different, enemies are doing different attacks, and some are in completely different levels than normal. GamePro...
I think Mega Man X is peak Mega Man. Come for me in the comments. You know what I'm saying? Tell me the NES versions are better, okay? Tell me all these ones that came out on a PlayStation and all this stuff is better. But I'm going to the grave with that. Unless I'm just like really missing out on something, and then I'll, correct myself. But I think Mega Man X, like how he looks and everything, is like peak. I feel like that's him in his prime.
TV also got footage of this early build.
Super Nintendo's new Mega Man X is the mega masterpiece we've all been waiting for. Your new adversaries are more diabolical than ever. Luckily, the X-Man's arsenal is now stoked to the boiling point. You can bet there'll be plenty more Mega Man X sequels to come.
Then the previews really started rolling out for the next few months. EGM got more, Nintendo Power had some, GamePro also got a few articles. Also, what is that artwork? Is this early X, or is it supposed to be X with all of his armor upgrades?
I was like, yo, I wasn't going to say nothing. I was like, maybe that's a part of the game I ain't get to yet.
What is this? Any X fans know better than I that could figure this out? Then, of course, the biggest coverage would come with the January 1994 issues of both Electronic Gaming Monthly and Nintendo Power. Both gave massive, multi-page previews covering the whole game.
Wow.
It was also the cover for Nintendo Power. Of course, the biggest reveal that any gaming magazine gave us was the reveal of one super hidden secret ability that X can get. After getting every single upgrade in the game and doing some stage replaying, X can acquire the Hadouken Fireball from Dr. Light, dressed up like Ryu from Street Fighter 2.
Yeah, I just found out about that not too long ago. That's sick.
Hadouken can only be used at full energy, and one hit kills everything in the game. And
Wow.
you do it by pressing a quarter circle forward and pressing fire. These days, Mega Man X is considered to be one of the best Super Nintendo games of all time. How did it review when it came out, though? Also super well. EGM awarded it 9 out of 10 with the Editor's Choice Platinum Award. GamePro averaged a 4.75 out of 5, and in a shocking twist, Nintendo Power was the lowest with an average score of a 3.9 out of 5. To give comparison for that, that's a slightly lower score than what they gave Winter Extreme Skiing and Snowboarding. It wasn't a...
What? Are they just like being biased like towards their own, for their own games? Like, why on earth? Because I was wondering what made the other magazines decide to give like a 9.75. What I was wondering, what was that 0.25 they took off? But taking off that much is ridiculous. That is absurd. They need to be ashamed of themselves.
Immediate hit. Mega Man X would go on to sell well over 1 million copies, getting several sequels and its own spin-offs, becoming a sub-series of the entire Mega Man franchise. It would also get a PC port. X would appear in a single episode of the Mega Man cartoon, which debuts later in 1994, and there would be some
a limited edition Mega Man X Pogs. It would get an honestly excellent full-on remake for the PSP titled Maverick Hunter X. And if you want to play the original Mega Man X today, you can through the Mega Man X Legacy Collection. When new hardware lacks releases, there's always the best backup plan: ports. Released at the very end of December 1993 for the Sega CD, was Microcosm. Microcosm is a shoot-'em-up with a behind-the-back viewpoint. Tiny nanomachine robots are taking over the company's president to control his mind, fly through his body, and shoot everything that comes your way. Swap between different weapons to use, and in some levels, swap out to, of course,
I think this is off subject.
3D. The background is still, because of the game also being what you would hope, as they were primarily played by the development staff, although one of them was Paul Franklin, who would go on to be an Oscar-winning video effects artist, working on movies like Inception and Interstellar. Also, can I personally say, I think the Sega CD music kind of course. However, your Sega add-ons too, released just before.
Am I tripping? Does this have to do with Mega Man? Did I miss something?
For the Super Nintendo of oversized robots. Every single level is basically a boss fight. You versus down do. You may know best. Every boss is massive and it makes it easy to find their weak points. It's one of the most.
Is he like advertising something, or is this about Mega Man? I'm sorry, y'all. I got ADHD, so it started kicking in.
Talks about Super Scope, the enemy based in Metal Issue 54 review. The game pro center mode like work editor Dylan.
Okay.
Lethal Enforcers.
Okay, so this is where they're talking about other games that came out around that time, I believe. Let's see anything else about Mega Man. Alrighty. I'm gonna say that that's basically it about Mega Man. It's a good video. I do like their channel a lot. Sorry, y'all. I kind of started getting kind of lost. Thank you for riding along with my ADHD. Thank you for taking this train.
Today, I want to talk about the great.
Okay. All right, so my takeaway is Mega Man X is dope, and Nintendo, was that Nintendo Power? Is dumb. Okay, let's go to the next video.
Angel Knot.
All right, this is called the pussification of video games.
Great pussification of video games that has happened the past 20 years. Is it a soy-based diet doing this? Is it the rise of OnlyFans simping doing this? If you have recently had the thought, I wonder what new pumpkin-flavored items Trader Joe's has, be careful, my brother in Christ. You might be gay now.
Hold on, my bad.
That is straight as hell. It's the rock-solid video game.
My bad. I'm having some technical issues.
Angel Knot.
What on earth?
Angel Knot.
There I go. Golly. My bad, y'all. Woo. Let's go ahead and get it started again. My bad. All right, so once again, this video is the pussification of video games. All right, let's see what it's talking about.
Angel Knot.
Today, I want to talk about the great pussification of video games that has happened the past 20 years. Is it a soy-based diet doing this? Is it the rise of OnlyFans simping doing this? If you have recently had the thought, I wonder what new pumpkin-flavored items Trader Joe's has, be careful, my brother in Christ, you might be gay now. But if there's one thing that is straight as hell, it's the rock-solid video games of the 2000s. Your Gears of War, your Medals of Honor, your Chronicles of Riddick's. These games were masculine as hell, and we want them back, and we're boycotting video games until they come back.
Rage.
I recently saw this disappointing photo of Phil Spencer being pushed out of the photo by two domineering girl bosses who are probably unfulfilled because they're trying to succeed in the corporate world instead of having children at home like God designed them to.
Oh my goodness
And
gracious.
don't you love Phil's cute little Doom shirt? Like, hey guys, I'm still one of the bros, right? Look, like, we can still hang, right? Nah, Phil, you're trash. You got cucked, dude. You're useless. So I have found that there are still people out there who deny the simple fact that games have gone woke, homo, and gay in 2024. So in this video, I'm going to literally prove it to you using science. What we will do is read the back of the box description of 6 random games from 2024, and then we will read the back of the box descriptions of 6 random games from the 2000s. And if what I'm saying is true, we should notice a feminization, a pussification, a gayification of video games.
Hey, you got Black Panther up there doing that? Look at it. Look. Y'all see it? You can't have T'Challa up there. I don't know what dance that is.
That has happened the past 20 years.
No.
And before you bring up that video games don't have boxes anymore in 2024, calm your tits. You know what I mean. So to find 6 modern games, I didn't have to look very far. I literally just went to the front page of Xbox Game Pass and found these games. This is clearly what Phil and his team of homos actually expects us men to play. Here they are.
Is that
Clearly
a girl or a
literally
dude?
just went to the front page of Xbox Game Pass and found these games. This is clearly what Phil and
Is that a girl or a dude? Yo, I'm so tired of in 2025 trying to figure out if somebody's a girl or a dude. Even when I'm out in public, like, I'm sorry, yo. Y'all can cancel me or whatever. But I'm dead serious. I have a genuine question. Is this character, whoever has played this game, supposed to be a girl or a dude? Huh? Because it looks like a girl, but I saw the mustache.
his team of the front page of Xbox Game Pass and found these games. This is clearly what Phil and his team of homos actually expects us men to play. Here they are: Creatures of Ava, Dungeons of Hinterberg, Flintlock Siege of Dawn, Flock, Magical Delicacy, and Chia. Now,
I will say this, though. It's not necessarily that they expect us men to play it. Gaming is so much larger than just men today, right? There are tons and tons of female gamers as well. So that's just something to consider.
you might say, oh, Andrew, you're specifically picking out games aimed at children. No, dude, I'm literally just going to the front page of Game Pass, and these are 6 games featured on the front page of Game Pass. Also, side note, isn't it weird that these pedo developers are always making games aimed at kids? But that's a whole other thing I'm not going to get into right now. All right, so what games from the 2000s should we compare these with?
That boy trying to cook. That boy trying to get him and me canceled.
They are Brothers in Arms Road to Hill 30, Ride to Hell Retribution, Modern Warfare 2, Dark Sector, Deus Ex Human Revolution, Chronicles of Riddick, Assault on Dark Athena. And again, all I'm going to do here is read the descriptions and we will compare. 2024, Creatures of Ava. Let your empathy guide you as you play an exciting...
Oh, no. I ain't trying to have my empathy guide me in nothing when it comes to video games.
Action adventure creature saver game. Understand and tame the creatures of Ava and let them lead you through a variety of ecosystems.
Yo, I ain't gonna lie. I'm into monster taming games, and I saw what's his name? Gym Leader Ed. He had a video about this, and the game looked kind of decent. But when you read it in the tone that he's reading it in, oh my gosh, it sounds, yeah.
All in the hopes of saving the planet from a life-consuming infection. I also found out that the two main characters of this game are, of course, homosexual black women because, 2024. Let your empathy guide
Why can't you just have a strong female, black, straight woman?
you. Like, what the hell? I don't play video.
I'm so tired of being gay, getting lumped into being black. Like, I'm over that.
Games to let my empathy guide me in, ooh, I want to be gay and collect creatures, and like, this game just sounds retarded, let's be honest. So now let's
I mean, I did kind of like the, like I said, I kind of like the concept because I like monster collecting games, right? Grew up on Pokemon, but that whole gay character stuff, that's,
let's compare this with a game from 20 years ago. 2005, Brothers in Arms Road to Hill 30. The back of the box says this: they would sacrifice everything except each other. Like, damn, dude, just grabs you by the balls. Like, that is the back of a box. I'm like, okay, I'm interested now. That is a dope intro for a back of the box. It goes on: the night before D-Day, 1944, the paratroopers of the 101st Airborne Division are dropped into Normandy and scattered behind enemy lines. As Sergeant Matt Baker, lead your squad through 8 harrowing days that will define history and unite you forever as brothers in arms. Like, bro, like, the balls of these games description. I have to go play this game now. See, this is what's honestly missing from the 2024 homo trash. Like, nothing is good anymore. Nothing grabs us. This is why video games profits are down. And they've completely quit catering to their base market of men. Next game, 2024 Dungeons of Hinterberg. Armed with a sword and a tourist guide, explore the beautiful.
When you read anything in that accent, then yeah.
Alpine village of Hinterberg and uncover the magic hidden within its dungeons. Master magic, solve puzzles, slay monsters.
Yo, this game low-key look dope, man. I'm not with all of the gay stuff in video games. You know what I'm saying? But this game low-key look dope, but the way that he's reading it makes it sound ridiculous.
All this and more awaits you in Hinterberg. Like, okay, I like swords, but based on the game's art style, I know within the first 5 minutes, we're meeting somebody.
We for sure have a man who dresses in woman's clothes on our team.
His non-binary boyfriend. Like, nah, dude, I'm good. Now compare this to the 2013 masterpiece, Ride to Hell Retribution. Back of the box says this: 2 fists, 2 wheels, no rules. Now, it's a little cheesy, but I already know one thing. This game has balls. But it gets better. A lone rider, Jake Conway, locked in a battle to the death against a ruthless gang of bikers.
Hey, this look like that game, what is it, Full Throttle? I think that's what it was called on the computer. This looks like a updated version of that.
Called The Devil's Hand. Okay, and you got a hot chick on the back. Like, dude, I'm in. I want to play this game now. These 2024 games will be 3 sentences long and still can't grab my attention. And then with like 1 word, this 2013 game completely has me by the balls. Like, guys, it kind of makes me sad that America actually used to export like cool stuff to the world. And now it's just homo woke garbage that America is exporting. Like, I know you dudes in Europe know what I'm talking about. Like, America used to export, the Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, the Stallone movies, like all of the awesome stuff of the 80s and 90s. And look at like the homo trash garbage that America is exporting today. And it's such a shame. Next game, 2024 Flintlock Siege of Dawn.
I am so sick of all these gay black women. Gay black women content is what I'm trying to say. There are, black women, they just put them in such a light that they're not fully represented. They're either represented as being sassy or like showing gay or bossy or whatever, but I'm married to a black woman. You know what I mean? I have a black daughter, right? And I don't know if I've seen any video game representation that shows like that they're just normal people, right?
Step into the boots of Nor Van Anik, an elite member of the Coalition Army, joined by Inky, a
Y'all can misconstrue everything I'm saying in the comments. It's whatever.
mysterious fox-like companion in their quest for vengeance against the gods. Guided by Inky, who shares his knowledge of the world with you, your combat skills and traversal abilities will be imbued with this magical powers, making you a duo to be reckoned with. Like, nah, dude, it just sounds gay. It sounds queer. Why is every game like this now? It's always some magical nonsense that never sounds cool. It's like none of these developed.
The game low-key look hard. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if the character's gay. I've never played that game, but the game low-key look dope. I'm trying to be objective.
Beta tested any of these ideas with normal guys. I guarantee you get a bunch of straight dudes in a room and they would tell you this idea was terrible. Oh, but the cherry on top, of course, is this. Black female lesbian girl boss as the main character.
She ends up fighting for her girlfriend and trans best friend or something.
Like, F off, dude. I'm not playing. I think it's a woman. It might be a man. It might be a they, them. All right,
oh
so
my
back
gosh.
to the 2000s. And I know this isn't fair to compare this game, but it just popped off my shelf. 2009 Modern Warfare 2. Back of the box says this. Modern Warfare 2 continues the gripping and heart-racing action as players face off against a new threat dedicated to bringing the world to the brink of collapse. Like, yes, dude, I want to know that new threat dedicated to bringing the world to the brink of collapse. Also, if you had played Call of Duty before this, you're kind of already invested, so it's a great tagline. 2024 game, Flock. Flock is a multiplayer co-op game about the joy of flight and collecting adorable flying creatures with your friends.
Yeah, this looks lame.
Soar through beautiful landscapes, seeking out rare and elusive creatures to add to your flock. Like, dude, this shit is gay. Like, this is either designed for
Oh,
a
that's
5-year-old, or it's designed for a 30-year-old gay man, or it's designed for a woman. But none of those people are buying Xboxes. Like, Phil, you're retarded, and your company's going to go out of business if you keep this up.
That
All right,
game
jumping back
crazy
to the 2000s,
whack.
this is a good one. Dark Sector 2008. Become the ultimate weapon. The virus, the source of your pain. Your enemy, your power. Unleash the deadly power of the glaive and become the hero. Like, dude, that's the back of a box right there. Now I'm intrigued. Now I'm like, whoa, a virus? My power? What is the glaive? Like, what is this about? I want to become the ultimate weapon. Like, in the 2000s, games were made by straight dudes. And in 2020, games are made by mostly gay men and women. Like, it's that simple. Men, actual straight men, we want power. We want cool weapons. We want, deadly powers and glaives and becoming the ultimate weapon. That sounds cool. But if you're a gay man or a woman or a child, none of which are people who actually play video games, then you want to collect adorable creatures.
That's not true. Everybody plays video games.
It really comes down to that. 2024, Magical Delicacy, and I've made fun of this game before. A wholesome pixel art platformer. Cook magical delicacies from a vast collection of ingredients in your own shop. Explore an unfamiliar town and deliver tasty treats to the townsfolk. Like, no, dude. What the fuck? Yeah, no straight guy has ever thought, I want to deliver tasty treats to the townsfolk. That is something women would do.
If I'm delivering tasty treats to the town folks, man, it's gonna be DoorDash. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be getting paid some real money.
But that is not something a straight guy would be like, ooh, I want to deliver tasty treats. Jumping back to a classic from the 2000s, Deus Ex Human Revolution 2011. The big text says, the truth will change you. Like, damn, son, what truth? I have to know. What is being hidden from me? It goes on. Critically injured after a deadly attack, Adam Jensen undergoes a life-saving operation, augmenting him with powerful cybernetics. Caught in the middle of a vast conspiracy, Adam's choices will affect both himself and all of humanity as he seeks answers across the globe. Like, dude, I am rock hard right now. Like, I want to play this game.
Oh my
I don't want
gosh.
to play anything about collecting adorable creatures or delivering gay treats to people's houses. I want to play whatever Human Revolution is about. And it's funny because, like, I can't put my finger on exactly what made 2000s games so good, but it has something to do with men. We're dudes, and we want games about dudes. And we want games about male transformation and identity and a man who is going through something, who is actually a man. I can't really describe what made the 2000s games so good other than that they're focused exclusively on the male psyche because it was men playing the games. It's always been men playing the games. So as long as Sony and Xbox don't
Sleeping Dogs, that's a dope game too. People be sleeping on it. No pun intended.
Realize this obvious fact and keep designing games for 14-year-old girls, for women, and for gay men, I truly think Xbox is going to go out of business, and Sony will go out of business if they don't figure out who their audience is quickly. 2024 game, Chia, a tropical open-world adventure. Take control of any animal or object you can find and jam on your fully playable ukulele. Like, no, dude, this just sounds like some cozy garbage trash game. Like, if I wanted to, if I wanted to chill out and do nothing, I would just go do something besides play a video game. But when I play a video game, I want to have like an intense experience.
No, see, that's kind of where I disagree. When I'm playing a video game, I want to do whatever the heck I want to do. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes I might be wanting to have an intense experience, and sometimes I might literally just want to chill when playing a game, and not think about a deep storyline or anything like that. So I feel like there's a place for both, but it can be done in a way that caters towards men. Like, I'm sick of every cozy game, or if I'm looking at just different cozy YouTube reviews, like it seems like everything is just like baking or farming or anything like that. Like I don't know what would be I mean, I guess the word cozy isn't even too masculine, but I mean, for real, I love cozy games, but they gotta do something else in the genre as well.
I don't want to have some cozy trash experience. So my only thinking with this is that Xbox seems to think that their target is gay men, 5-year-olds, and women. But the super obvious fact, as I've said it again and again, is that their audience is full of 30-year-old dudes. So, like, at this point, I just think Xbox is probably going to go bankrupt because they keep putting stuff like this out.
Not if Microsoft is funding it.
The final game here that I found from the 2000s, and it is called The Chronicles of Riddick: Assault on Dark Athena. You already know this box is about to go hard. At the top, it says in big letters, there is power in darkness. See, like men, we want power. We're all about powers and domination and conquering. Understand your audience, guys. Below that, it says a dark, intense shooter set in an epic sci-fi world. Like, this is all things we want. We want darkness, we want intensity, we want shooting, and we want sci-fi. Riddick brings the darkness with stealth, action, and brutal melee combat. And then for the first time, play as Riddick in multiplayer on System Link or online. Below that, it says, be Riddick, the most ruthless criminal in the universe. In his latest chronicle, Riddick has been captured by the Dark Athena, a mercenary ship hell-bent on eliminating him once and for all. Using his intense hand-to-hand combat skills, explosive firepower, and lethal stealth, Riddick must shut down the maniacal Captain Ravas and her deadly crew when Riddick steps into the darkness. No one is safe. Like, dude, don't you want to play that game? Darkness, power, prison. I'm
gonna skip past this.
Dying right now.
I'm not really into the ultra violent video games, to be honest.
Because they're chasing audiences that don't exist. Gay men don't play your games. Kids don't play Xboxes. Women don't play Xboxes. Phil Spencer and PlayStation and all these companies need to wake up and...
Yeah, this stuff belongs on the Nintendo Switch.
Freaking realize that...
Not knocking the Switch, because I have a Switch, but it seems like that's more of this demographic.
Straight dudes are playing these games, and they need to be making games for us. So developers, if you are listening, give us manly games. Give us power. give us darkness, give us violence, give us brawny buff dudes who beat the crap out of people with our sick powers. And if y'all do this, if y'all quit being pussies, if y'all quit pussifying the game industry and actually give us manly games, we will buy games again. But the video game industry, the video game economy is going to keep crashing until y'all give people what they want. It's so simple. I'm out of here.
Yeah, he said a lot. I mean, I think that some of what he said is, the stereotypical guy. Like I said, I do like cozy games, and I consider myself to be straight. Identify as, a heterosexual man. And I do love cozy games, but like I said, a lot of the cozy games, are super whack. So I don't really have many options, I might look at like Terraria as a cozy game or something like that. But yeah, man, I'm like, they can keep a lot of that stuff outside of games, for real, for real. Like, I'm tired of my kid watching even just some of these cartoons, right? Like, the other day my daughter was watching Pinkalicious, and like Pinkalicious like snuck in some gay stuff, and I don't, it's so easy to label somebody a homophobic or whatever nowadays, but I'm not homophobic, man. I'm not scared of gay people. Like, I don't have a phobia for gay people. I just, yeah. All right, y'all. My family is back. You feel me? So I'm going to go ahead and end this. Salutations to the nations. Peace.